7:09 on Saturday, April 20th. And this is the Salim MuWakkil Show on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. To stream online, just go to www.wvon.com. And if you hear my voice, it's clear that you've reached that place where we reflect on the news of the week and try to make some sense of it all. We're trying to provoke informative, entertaining, and useful conversation, and we want to do that with respect. And so we need your help on that. And so the question is, are you ready to flex the muscles in your mind? Because, family, if it's 7 on Saturday, it is time for Salim. And y'all know what to do to join in. Just pick up the phone and give me a call at 1773-591-1690. 591-1690, 1690, and you can join in the conversation. Well, what a week. What a week. A lot of the nation was caught up deeply in an unfolding drama in the Boston area after 2 bombs exploded near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. And those explosions triggered an amazing sequence of events that so far has culminated with the Friday night capture of one of the 2 men fingered for planning the explosives. The death of another. The other one was shot dead by police in a shootout. And the process that produced this conclusion was a bizarre ride through a whole lot of new terrain in our lives and in the features of our lives in 21st century America. The new terrain of like the social media, how that was such an important aspect of all of this, and how it really, in some ways, it helped, but it also helped us understand the dangers of it, because 2 guys were fingered for being the culprits, and they weren't, and they were widely publicized, and there had to be a furious retraction to get them out of the news, and a lot of that was provoked by social media, Reddits, and these other kind of aggregating sites. But that is one, and then the omnipresent phone cameras that captured so many images during the marathon that allowed authorities to narrow it down to these 2 guys who were ultimately charged with the crime. It also surveillance cameras. A lot of people were hoping that surveillance cameras had captured enough images, and a lot of people in Boston were saying, wow, wish we had as many surveillance cameras as Chicago. And, you know, many folks in Chicago were very, very condemnatory or you know, they were critical of the fact that Chicago had so many cameras. In fact, it's probably the most surveilled big city in the country. It has surveillance cameras all over the place. Remember when the brother's name will come to me shortly, but he committed suicide. He was a school board president at one point, and he committed suicide. But we had enough surveillance cameras in the city to really chart his progress, where his car went during the hours before he committed suicide near the Chicago River. They almost had a flawless kind of itinerary of where he visited, because there were so many surveillance cameras that picked up his vehicle. So a lot of people in Boston were wishing for the same thing, but it turns out that there were enough cameras to capture these 2 guys almost in the act. And also it sparked a new interest in advances in image analysis. How computers assisted in this, and how, you know, what danger is there for privacy overall? Do any of us have any expectation of having a private life, a life that is unencroachable by forces that want to pry It doesn't look like we have that ability any longer. There's also new interest in Chechnya, in that part of the Caucasus region, that part of Russia. It used to be part of the Soviet Union and is now really a part of the Russian Federation. Chechnya and Dagestan and Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan and all of those areas of the Caucasus. A lot of people are just realizing and understanding what's going on there. We never knew really that there was a lot of animosity between the people of Chechnya and Dagestan and other Caucasus regions and Moscow. These guys are considered black Russians in some senses. These are Russians from the Caucasus part of Russia, and although we say Caucasian as the symbol of whiteness, actually, the literal definition of a Caucasian is someone from that part of the Caucasus Mountains region, and they are swarthy people, so to speak. The Russians consider them minorities, and that's why they're having such a hard time assimilating into what they call the white Russian society. But so a lot of people did some crash studies on that part of the world because that's where these two guys originate from. And although it's becoming pretty clear that that if what they did has some relationship to the political perspectives of folks in Chechnya, it's a very fringe relationship, because there's not much jihadist passion for attacking folks outside of Russia or the areas that are oppressing Chechnya and these other republics. So it helped a lot of folks get into that. Also, there was this unprecedented lockdown of an entire metropolitan area, which is amazing when you think about it. One 19-year-old guy, one teenager, prompted them to shut down an entire metropolitan area, not just the city, not just Boston, but Cambridge and Watertown, and it was really incredible when you think about it that this guy he was in a wrestling club in high school. He had no specialized training, and yet he was able to cause this massive disruption. Just think about what kind of propaganda bonanza that was for someone like from Al-Qaeda or some other terrorist-oriented organization. They know that all they have to do is lodge some sort of vague threat, and people will go, berserk and shut down everything. But on the other hand, the other way of looking at it is anyone who would try something like that should know that every rock will be overturned to find them. That they will have no refuge. So if they decide to do something like this, they might as well put their hands up in the air, because they're gonna get apprehended. Of course, that won't mean anything to suicide folk, but at the same time, it was really remarkable to see how this entire part of the country was shut down by this one guy. And also, in line with that, it was also pretty incredible to see the amazingly trigger-happy responses of the police whenever there seemed to be some shootout or somebody firing at them, or the possibility of somebody firing at them. They unleashed a fusillade of bullets. I mean, pow! At the merest sign of a threat. It was really a pretty uncanny to see or to hear, because I didn't really see, but you heard all of those bullets. They say 200 rounds. It sounded like it was more than that. I mean, they were just blanketing the area. It's amazing that more people weren't injured by random shots, by random bullets flying around. Same thing in Watertown. Later on, after they discovered the boat, and there was allegedly a guy in it cowering who was bloodied. They said he was uncommunicative, incommunicative, I think was the term they used to say when they tried to coax him out of the boat. And then suddenly you heard another fusillade, 200 or so bullets. The rat-a-tat-tat of those gun battles were amazing. And you know, you had to wonder, who were they shooting at, and how did they miss? I mean, when they said that they pulled him out of this boat alive, I said, wow, what were they shooting at? The boat must have had a steel hull or a lead hull or something, because they were leveling bullets at that craft. And so, but apparently, you know, it was sturdy enough to withstand it, because he survived, and now he's out. He's injured, and a lot of people want to know what happened. How did he turn to the dark side? For a while, he's not going to be accorded constitutional protections, because he has this the national security exception, or the public safety exception. They don't have to Mirandize him or you know, tell him that what he says will be held against him, and he's protected against self-incrimination, blah blah blah. And now, so there's a lot of discussion about that. A lot of conservatives want him to be classified as a combatant, as a enemy combatant, and therefore he will not have any kind of constitutional protections, or he will have much fewer than he would normally, were he not a citizen, which he is. And you know, so all of this is going on right now. So you know, people want to know, how does such a person become radicalized to the point where he thought it was appropriate to cause harm to civilians? That's pretty a radical thing, to put out these bombs, these shrapnel bombs that you know are going to be extremely destructive. That's pretty callous. Was it a case like the Beltway snipers, where John Allen Muhammad mesmerized his young acolyte, his admiring acolyte, Lee Boyd Malvo, to participate in the shootings? Was the younger Johar, was he brainwashed by his brother, the older Tourmaline, who reportedly was the one who was radicalized after spending some time in Russia last year, or sometime thereafter? And there was also the issue sparked by a news report that authorities were seeking a dark-skinned subject for the bombings. This was before the identification of the brothers was made, and there was a report of a Saudi national who was attacked by the crowd and pummeled, and then questioned by authorities at the hospital that treated him. He was innocent; he had nothing to do with it. And there's also the question of civil liberties, and should the surviving brother be accorded these constitutional protections? On my Facebook page, there's a controversy has erupted over the issue of this designation of urban terrorist, because I made the point that we see how if you have that designation of terrorism, constitutional protections are abrogated. They can do that, and I just made the point that should be another reason for us to resist the temptation to label black criminals urban terrorists. Because, you know, the black movement, much of the black movement was dedicated toward constitutional inclusion. And if you're going to give yourself a name or label your people something that takes away constitutional protections, that seems to be, not the right move, let us say. So that has provoked a lot of discussion about whether it makes sense to give that label to black criminals. Already we are demonized with being criminals. Why add terrorists to the list? And then in the news also, there was this massive explosion in West Texas that so far has resulted in the deaths of 14 people and the leveling of many buildings in the vicinity of that enormous blast. The significance of that explosion, which so far has been classified as an accident, is although, you know, there are conspiracy sites that said a missile, someone spotted a missile going into the plant. So that's out there. So get ready for that, which would probably, you know, you'll probably hear about it soon. but the explosive power of the fertilizer was revealed for all to see. It forced us really to recall how Timothy McVeigh used that same kind of stuff, same kind of materials to blow a huge hole in the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City in '95. So it provoked those kind of memories. And hey, what about the mail attack on Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker and on President Obama? Ricin was sent in the mail. They allegedly caught the guy who did it, and he seems to be, to have mental problems. But it again recalled the anthrax attack of 2001, right after the Twin Towers toppled. There was this anthrax attack that killed 10 people. It was serious. This Ricin attack kind of brought back those memories as well. We're going to talk about all this with you, and we want you to join in. But we're also going to spend some time this evening talking with a brother named Nkosi Manduri, a brother with a master's in counseling and psychology who has served as an assistant director of the African World Research Institute. And he now has a studio teaching martial arts, Taekwondo. And, Brother Nkosi just wrote a book entitled Genocide by Any Other Name is Still Genocide. His book makes the case that Europeans have targeted African people for genocide, actual genocide, and that there is a deliberate and systematic process in place to that effect. He's going to explain that, and he also is going to point out how we are complicit in our own demise. Kind of like, when Professor Willie Dixon, who used to be on WVON late nights, he used to say black folks would boogie their way into the gas chamber. But Brother Nkosi also includes some solutions in his book. So tonight we'll have a chance to talk with Brother Nkosi and build with him on some of those points, and also find out what some of those solutions he's talking about. So let's dive into this before we get into Brother Nkosi. What do y'all think about some of the issues we brought up this evening? Let me know what you think. Let's go to the phones. Brother Gary, hey, man.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm well. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's kind of funny. I was sitting here sleeping, and I heard you talking about the Boston situation, and
yes, sir.
You kind of asked the question, what made people snap like that,
Right.
And, I was sitting in the barbershop last night, man, and I happened to be watching Django, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny that, you don't hear about too many black people doing stuff like that, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part in a movie, I saw the movie once, but you know how you see a movie second time, you see something that you really didn't pay attention to the first time,
Absolutely. Uh-huh.
If you saw the movie, remember the part toward the end when he pulled out that skull out of that bag?
Yep.
And he said, this was Ben, and he goes, now see, if I cut your skull off, he goes, in these parts right here, there's 3 dimples. He goes, and those areas represent, I think he said, what's the word I'm looking for? Submissive. He goes, you guys have a lot of submissive mentality in you. You see what I'm saying? Because he was talking about how Ben used to shave his father's neck with a razor. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He said, if I was a slave, I would have cut my father's throat. He goes, but you guys are not built to have anger or, that kind of resentment. And it's kind of funny how, you hear something, but you don't think about it. You're like, wow, that's deep. You know what I'm saying? But all these calamities are happening with these people doing these bombing and killing. You very seldom hear to find out they were African American. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it takes a lot to make us snap, basically.
Uh-huh.
So, but they were talking about
But we do snap, and unfortunately, we snap on each other.
That's the bad part.
Yeah,
that's the bad part.
It's a less, perhaps less cataclysmic snap, but we snap nonetheless.
Oh yeah, we do have that ability. But I think, in all, I think that I don't think we are too quick to snap on our oppressors before we snap on somebody's
yes, sir.
you know what I'm saying?
I absolutely agree with you, brother. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I don't think that's so much a case of phrenology, which is what my man was talking about. Candy and Django, he was talking about phrenology.
Right.
I don't think it's so much that. I think it's more we've been socialized to be fearful of our oppressor. We've been socialized, man, to have that kind of fear.
Right. Yeah, but there was a whole deep. I'm thinking about what you're saying, and I'm like thinking about that, man, how that comes to my mind like that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
But it's kind of weird that this guy they did all that shooting and this guy didn't get killed.
Ain't that
something?
My friend, that's what I'm thinking.
They probably was trying to kill that guy, but they weren't successful. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they sure tried, didn't they?
I'm sure they was trying to kill that guy.
Man, all those bullets, brother, they had to be trying. I mean, it couldn't have been a decoy or them trying to flush him out, hitting the trees.
Right.
Man.
Right. Not all them shots. And like I said, a lot of people like that, man, they don't really survive an arrest because, first of all, they know something.
Right.
And sometimes they get killed because they're not supposed to be around and talk. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's going to be real interesting how this whole thing play out, man. It just a matter of time tells everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
But thanks, man. I appreciate you.
All right, Gary. Thank you, man.
To you.
All right, brother.
Uh-huh.
All right. Take care. Brother Gary. Okay, let's go to, Brother Aaron. Hey, Aaron. How you doing?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Okay. Now, my comment is in regards to the 4 big events that happened just this week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a show where we flex our mind muscles, right? So I want us to flex our mind muscles on the past 4 events that happened just this week.
Mm-hmm.
1, of course, the bombing in Boston.
Right.
2, the explosion in West Texas. 3, the poison letter sent by whoever, I think it was some white boy from Mississippi, where we're getting beat.
Right.
And 4, I'm quite sure everybody got a taste of the flooding that happened in here in Chicago in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that ain't major events happening, I don't know what is.
Well, why do you think they're so major? What do you think what's the consequence of them?
Well, you see, the reason for that being is because, for every action, there's reaction. So maybe it's because, well, see, I'm trying to be
Mm-hmm.
let me say this. Maybe it's the behavior of the people and the government and all these different things. Religious people. We in regards to religious people, we read scriptures and we read about all these different past ancient people that were destroyed. Like Salim and Gomorrah and Noah and the flood and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta think about that, and we gotta compare it to today. Because
okay, so you think it has biblical implications, huh?
Yeah, because this is biblical stuff, man. You talk about flood. You talk about flood. You talk about terrorism, foreign people coming in and bombing us. We got to think about this, man. Everything happens for a reason, and so as your show goes on, I just want everybody to think about those events, and unfortunately, more stuff is going to happen because we think so spooky sometimes, especially Christians. I'm not trying to jump on nobody's religion. Just like I'm jumping on nobody's religion. We just think so spooky sometimes. The way it just happened because the dude was crazy. No, the man's crazy. He got some deal. He may be wicked as hell, or maybe. He must be. He has some reason why he did it for his own personal reasons. His own personal reasons.
All right, brother. But let me say, man, there are people who would say to you that attributing all of this stuff to some other force, some supernatural force, some biblical agency is more spooky than attributing it to his psychological condition. There's folks who would say that to you. Say you're the spooky one. It was just some cats who went off, and in West Texas it was just an explosion of some fertilizer, and in the floods is just the regional flooding of the area, which we expect every spring. Just some springs are worse than others. And so to connect all of them in some sort of biblical narrative is, in fact, spooky. Now, how would you respond to that, my brother?
Well, my response to that is I'm no supernatural. I believe that God. I'm a religious person. I read the Bible. I'm a religious person.
Okay.
That's number one. I'm a believer in God. That's number two. And I just don't believe that. I just don't believe it just stuff just happening just because they happen, and that's that. I believe because if you look at the prophets, you study the prophets, they represent something. Mm-hmm. Now, we ask the question: what did they represent? Who do you know represent? Who did Jesus represent? Did he represent himself? Because y'all want to put Jesus. Christians. I know it's sound religious now, but Christians want to put Jesus on his high pedestal. He's not that. So who did Jesus represent? Who did Prophet Muhammad represent? They represent God, not some supernatural being. Well, to us, of our understanding, he's some supernatural being in our understanding. But we have to understand to ask ourselves, why are these events happening?
All right, my brother. I got you.
Who's letting these things happen? That's what we got to ask. That's my point. We just got to ask that question.
I hear your point, my brother. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, brother. All right. Brother Aaron, like many others, find religious significance in some of this. And so he's certainly not alone. There are many folks who have come to religious conclusions about what is going on. In fact, I'm sure that you'll remember that Pat Robertson and the late Jerry Falwell, the late unlamented Jerry Falwell, blamed the 9/11 on moral lapses in the American public. So it's not an alien conclusion. A lot of people come to those conclusions. It's not something that is unusual. So Brother Aaron is, I hear what he's saying. Let's go to, let's see, who's next? Brother Larry. Hey, Larry. How you doing, man?
Oh, bro, man, this has been a hard week for y'all liberals, I swear.
No.
The narrative did come off the rails.
Okay, explain that.
Nicholas Kristof over there at MSNBC, Chris Matthews, CNN, and Peter Bergen. It wasn't a right-wing Tea Party or conservative. Boy, they got to be all upset over there, huh? What do you think? Hey, look here, man. I want to ask you this. Now, I know the callers here want to constantly say that most of the evil and angst and horror in the world is due to racism and slavery. At least a lot of it, if not most of it. Mm-hmm. Okay? But, me, I say it's due to communism. Commies.
Wow.
And the commies are responsible for Chechens.
Mm.
When the German drive into the Caucasus in 1943 started, mm-hmm. Stalin accused the Chechens of collaborating with the Nazis, and he deported just about the whole population of Chechnya to Siberia. Tens of thousands of them died in the famine.
That's right.
And forced expulsion.
Absolutely.
But that's what communists do. So they don't mind.
So that's what all totalitarians do, man. There's, as you know, Larry, there are examples of those kinds of mass evacuations in the history of all totalitarian ideologies. Man, people think that if there's a group that opposes your wishes, that they have to be demonized and somehow isolated. So that's. Stalin was a typical totalitarian. I don't know if it's communism or if you can blame it specifically on communist ideology. If you understand what, and I'm sure that you do, what communist ideology is, that's like a byproduct of what they were trying to do.
Oh, I'll agree with you that communism isn't exactly Marxism because, it's not the dictatorship of the proletariat after all. It's the dictatorship of the elite nomenclatura. So it's definitely not communism as Marx laid it out. But let's face it, it's an offshoot of it.
Oh, it is.
It's got a whole lot in common with it.
It was an attempt to translate it into reality. You're right, no doubt. And it was a faulty attempt.
Oh, okay, but look. let's go on to something else I think people can relate to from this show. You had a guy on last week who I often have great respect for. Brother Steve. You know Steve I'm talking about.
Yes,
I got a couple, but you know the one I'm talking about. The one who espouses the scientific method.
Right.
The one who is very capable of making coherent, fine, strong arguments. He regularly does, even when I don't agree with him.
Right.
Last week he just made a whopper.
What
He made up a Constitution that doesn't exist.
What was that?
I got 5 different copies of the Constitution in 5 different books.
Oh, you mean talking about the Second Amendment?
Yeah, and you talk about more specifically about voting rights, and I hate to have your audience misinformed, but what he talked about, voting rights being essentially sacrosanct, among the most protected, is just not true. If you look every place in the Constitution where voting rights even mentioned, it's left up to the states, and states restrict voting rights differently. Some allow ex-felons to vote, others don't. But if you notice in the Second Amendment, the construction of the Second Amendment, its objective clause is pretty much a prohibitory regulation on any level of government because it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's one of the most perfect examples of a nominative absolute in a phrase I've ever seen. And I'm sure Steve, being college educated, unlike me, I didn't get educated by Marx and professor. I didn't go to college for 3 months. Unlike me, I know what a nominative absolute is. And he ought to go look it up and see what it is, because if you look at a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, that's an opinion. That doesn't mean anything in and of itself, but the right of the people to keep and bear arms is a legal and constitutional imperative, all by itself, standing alone. But, that's okay, because, I know in this aspect, Steve wants to believe what his little Mark.
Well, but it's not so
and
much.
The people in the door have been telling you.
But Larry, it's not simply Steve's idiosyncratic reading of the Constitution. It has been the opinion of Supreme Court justices throughout. I mean, in previous rulings on the Second Amendment, man, there's been all kinds of different readings of that clause.
Now, you just made a factual error. I'm going to have to correct you.
Okay.
You got Presser versus Illinois, 1876. You got the Miller decision of 1934. You got the Warren and Hayes decisions. You've got the Heller and McDonald decisions. All of them, to one degree or the other. I'm quoting you now. No, I can't. You're not going to give me time to quote everyone's decision. But all of them affirm the individual right, number one, and two, the right to be armed.
Well, why has there been confusion? Why has there been judicial confusion?
Because all these Marxists and leftists and papers just lie.
Okay,
I mean, if you gave me enough time, I will tell you what.
No. The point I'm trying to raise is that these are intricate distinctions, man. Intricate. You're making an intricate deconstruction of the grammar and the syntax of the Constitution.
Wait a minute, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm talking about Supreme Court decisions. They are pretty clear.
Okay, Larry.
One more thing.
All right, quickly, man.
Quickly.
Yes,
okay. 16 generals and colonels have signed on to the brief in California by Orly Tights, the identity fraud, urging the court to give a fair hearing. I'm talking about general officers and colonels, Eagle colonels, bird colonels, and major general up to lieutenant general have all signed on the case. They've looked at the evidence. They're urging the courts in California, Judge England in the Orly Tights case brought there, to look at this evidence about Obama's identity fraud, give it a fair hearing. I'm telling you, it's going to blow up. You need to start looking into it.
Okay, Larry. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Larry from Georgia. Still, what can I say? I would like for the brother not to do that, not to flail that dead horse, but he flails nonetheless. There are very resolute folks in Arizona and elsewhere pushing this judicial angle on trying to force the president to admit he's not who he says he is, or whatever their point is. There's a lot of energy being directed in there, so I guess it's important to understand that there are people who are really, really trying to derail this president on that bogus charge. Donald, good evening. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing just fine, Brother Salim.
All right.
First of all, let me say to you, the name that you were looking for was Michael Scott.
That's him. Yes, sir.
Secondly, I would like to congratulate Quincy Jones for finally being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
All right, Quincy.
I'm in the baby boomer age group, and I realized that a lot of the TV shows I watch, Quincy Jones made the theme music.
He sure did.
I believe he even made the theme music to the cartoon show I used to watch, Courageous Cat.
I
hope somebody will correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm.
What I wanted to call about tonight, Salim, Wednesday I was listening to your show, and you had what I thought was an unusual number of white callers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those callers sounded a little angry to me. They sounded like they wanted to make remarks about black people, and I just deducted that they were angry about some of the things they heard on this station regarding the Boston bombing.
Mm.
Now, I just wanted to say that in this time of heavy corporate media bombardment, I want black media because I want to hear black opinion and I want to hear black viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
This is why your show and black media is important for me, because sometimes I just get tired of hearing the corporate party line.
Yes, sir.
I want to hear black opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear black viewpoints. And during those times when black radio wants to take on the corporate party line for whatever reason, whether it's corporate control or whatnot, then I think it's my job to turn off the radio, turn off the television, but black media is not doing its job.
Well, sometimes, though, Donald, it's important, I think, to understand the perspective of other folks or to take it on black media, to challenge it on black media, so that, because a lot of times, man, we hear other people come down with their opinions of us, and all we could do is get angry at them, and really, when it comes time to confront them with facts or challenges, we really don't have those facts available. We simply get angry.
Well, that is true. Just like Matt McGill asked a question, what would you say to a white man if he told you white people put drugs in a black community? Why would y'all be stupid enough to take it? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to come back to that one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But
see that and I think what Matt is talking about is when he's on another venue.
Yeah, right.
And I understand that absolutely exactly what he's talking about, because when you're on another talk show, for example, that is controlled by another sensibility, they bring their own biases and their own presumptions and to their own perspective to the question. And so, in order to answer the question in a sufficient way, the way you see it, you have to deconstruct their perspective first, and that takes a lot of time, man. And you know, media is not time friendly. Is not friendly to folks who want to explain nuances. It wants quick answers. It wants know, and so it's difficult to do that. So I understand where he's coming from with that.
And I want to wrap this up because I want to listen to the guest that you have on.
Yes, sir.
But finally, I want to say, when I think of Boston, I don't know if you remember this photo, Salim. I think of 1976 when the two white guys held the brother, and the photo where another white man
was putting the flag up.
Yeah, tried to impale
I remember that well. Yes,
face.
Sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, impale the brother's face with the American flag.
I remember it well.
Brother, I don't have any feelings toward Boston. I'm going to be quiet. I hate to see people hurt, legs amputated, but I don't have any feelings toward Boston.
Come on, brother. Come on now. That what happened in Boston was what you could say was a rare occasion of racial animosity that had flared up to the public.
That was during the forced busing.
A forced busing period, exactly.
Yeah,
and you know,
black people were being attacked during that time.
There were white citizens who were angry at the policies that were forcing African Americans into their schools and changing the community character of their educational experience. And so they were angry at that. They directed that anger at black people. There were a lot of black people who understood that and tried to contextualize it. And at the same time, you know, there was there's white racism in Boston, just like there's white racism all throughout America, and they certainly didn't want their children going to school with black people. But to single out Boston as some sort of some specialized, as a region of specialized hatred, I don't think is appropriate. I don't think it's accurate, first of all. I think because Boston has a lot of relatively pluralistic institutions and
well, I don't think I just singled out Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying from my life experience, that photo stayed burned in my mind for a long time.
Yeah, I got you. Mine too, man. Absolutely. I hear you.
Brother Salim, thank
Yes,
you very much for what you're doing. Let me say that before I hang up the phone. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Don. I appreciate you for calling, brother.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, my guest has arrived, Brother Nkosi. Good afternoon, my brother. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, brother. Thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, well, I'm glad you can join us, man. We got a lot of callers. I want to take one more caller before we go straight to you. And then after we're going to talk about, your book and some of your ideas. And we also want to, keep you around, let you respond to some of these callers as well, because I'm sure you have some ideas on what's going on out here.
Yes,
let's go to let's see, Tia. Hey, Tia. Good evening. You on with Salim MuWakkil?
Fine. How you doing, Salim?
I'm doing well.
Good. Yes, I just wanted to talk about when you mentioned all this barrage of gunshots and everything.
Yes.
I'm thinking about these school systems who are now going to allow these police, they're going to be teachers, but they have been policemen before, so they can bring a gun into the classroom. I don't know if you had a chance to read that, or you probably have, and I don't think that that's a good thing. I think that, because they don't understand, they haven't had psychology of little people, elementary or junior high. We see how mean they treat our children, put them in jail at 5 and 7 years old, and I just think that's a bad idea, and it's an unsafe idea for our children. And I think I would like to suggest to parents to go over to the University of Illinois at Chicago or the University of Chicago, take some methods courses so they can learn how to teach their own children, because these people haven't had any psychology or anything regarding children. What do you think about it, Salim?
I think that's a very good point, Tia. Absolutely good point. And I think that is also pretty insightful for you to make that connection between this kind of trigger happy response that we saw in Boston and really just about anywhere else. I remember when this guy Christopher Dorner in California, when he was at large, they fired on some vehicles that just merely resembled his, and they almost killed 2 women in their frenzy. And so I think they have a tendency to be trigger happy. Cleveland, Ohio, for example, they shot 141 bullets into this car in Cleveland and killed 2 black people who were unarmed, a man and a woman. They were unarmed. The police, 12 cops fired 141 bullets into this vehicle, and so I think there are too many examples of that kind of bullet craziness, that kind of affection for firearms that we need to be quite warriors. So I think you make a very good point, sister.
Yes, and I just want to say that I appreciate your program, too. And the last thing is we need to protect our boys and girls, too, but our boys especially. A 9-year-old can be tall as a 12-year-old white boy. So I think we better just protect our children.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Thank you, Tia. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, let's introduce Brother Nkosi before we go to a break, so we can have a longer time to talk at large with him. Brother Nkosi Mandori, who has a master's in counseling and psychology. You served as an assistant director of African World Research Institute, and are you a owner of the studio that teaches Taekwondo, or are you a teacher of Taekwondo right now?
I'm just a teacher.
Okay, and you've written a book, which is the primary reason you're here this evening, is to talk about this book that has gotten great reviews from a brother I respect. The book is entitled "Genocide by Any Other Name Is Still Genocide."
Yes.
The book makes the point that Europeans have targeted African people for genocide.
Absolutely.
And you make it unequivocally clear how that has happened, right?
Yes, absolutely. I actually mentioned in the book while I was writing that I am simply stating the obvious. It is very clear that African people are being targeted. It is no mistake that we make up the bulk of the prison population. This is not by accident. And it is also not by accident that the black family is destroyed to the degree that it is, to the point that roughly 8 out of 10 black families here in this society specifically are headed by a black female. That is no accident. That is the prime target, because it is strong families that make up strong nations. So sure that you don't have a strong nation, I will make sure that your family is destroyed utterly. And I'll make sure that the black woman and the black man don't get together and continue to be at odds. This is all by design.
You can make it clear that it is by design rather than by the coincidental effects of economic dynamics or of sociological effects of certain governmental policies. You can zero in on the genocidal intent,
right?
In that,
and I'm able to do that, and anyone is able to do that because they control all of the institutions. And if they control all the institutions, and you have a adversarial history with these people, and nature dictates that every individual species has an innate built-in sense of self-preservation, which in turn means that they will look out for themselves and their kind first and foremost. That's how nature works. So there is going to be conflict. There is no, we're going to live happily after with these people. It's not going to happen. And I defy anyone to show me historically that works.
Well, okay. So in other words, there's a inevitable clash between the interest of the European population and the interests of the African population, the African American. You prefer the word African. You prefer to label African for.
I do, and I do for this reason. The African American title is a divisive title in my view, and that is another form of division. So all forms of division are used, no matter how subtle, to make sure that we do not unite. And names is one of those instruments that they use, and we unfortunately get tied into these titles and labels and embrace them, but they are forms of division. And so it was my thinking and suggestion that we call ourselves by one name, and at this point that is the most generally worldwide recognized name for that continent, even though we know the history behind the name itself, but we need to have a starting point.
Of course, there are those who would say, my brother, that when black people, when enslaved Africans were brought here, we weren't even Africans. We came as members of various ethnic groups, Mandinka, Hausa, and the word African actually united us in a way that it hadn't in the past, that because we was from so many different parts of Africa, we really didn't know what part we were. We had to create kind of a composite Africa, and that compositeness united us in a way that we hadn't been united in the past. How do you respond to that?
I would just agree. I would just agree with that. That the bottom line is that we all came from one specific continent, and that specific continent is Africa, and that's why I identify ourselves as Africans, because we came from the same continent that produced the culture and civilizations that are the bedrock of all of the other cultures and civilizations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, my brothers. Well, you can see, those of you listening can see that we have a provocative evening in store this tonight, and we got Brother Nkosi, who is well equipped to answer my critical questions. I'm gonna fire him at the brother because I know he can handle it, and he comes with the recommendation of Brother Mansong, so you know he's got the intellectual firepower to subsist. And also, folks, if you have questions for Brother Nkosi, hold them, and we're going to come to you pretty soon. I'm not I'm not going to keep you at bay because I know you have a lot of questions to ask the brother. Because much of what we're going to be talking about is what we talk about normally on the show, especially in the face of all of this violence that is disrupting our community, and how we can. Brother Nkosi is going to help us understand ways that we can approach that in a more realistic way, in a more effective way. So stay tuned and make sure that you get your questions ready to go. And we will be right back after this. And we're back. Salim MuWakkil here with my special guest this evening, Brother Nkosi Mundari. And we are talking about his new book, Genocide by Any Other Name is Still Genocide. And he's talking about how we have been destroyed and the process, how they are attempting to destroy us, and how the process is ongoing and self-perpetuating. Brother Nkosi, give us a little bit of your biography, man. Where are you from, and what provoked you to tackle this deep subject here?
Okay. I am a product of Chicago. I was born right here at Cook County Hospital, and was born on the west side of the city, and moved to the south side when I was about 10 years old. I went to a Catholic school from kindergarten through my freshman year, and then after that I was in the public school system. I graduated high school in '75, a couple of years late, but I made it through. And I'm the oldest of 5 brothers. Both my parents were in the home growing up, so we were fortunate in that regard, and they were good people. I went to Wright Junior College right out of high school. Was still trying to find my way, just accumulated some credits, but started working, didn't go back to school until my adult years, actually in '99. When I was in my 40s, I went back to North Park University and received a bachelor's in organizational management from North Park, and then I was accepted at Romeoville Lewis University into their master's psychology program and received a master's degree in 2007. My background prior to receiving this degree was in production. I was a production supervisor for over 20 years. And it was during this process that I learned to speak Spanish in my 30s, actually.
So you're bilingual now? I
am bilingual now, and I can read and write. I'm proficient in it. And like I said, I did that in my 30s. I also took up the martial arts of Taekwondo also in my late 30s. And it took me 4 years to get my degree and my black belt, but I was able to achieve that at age 41. I'm very proud of that. I have one daughter, and what inspired me in regards to this book was a very genuine love for self and kind, and it was this love for self and kind that compelled me to arm myself with confirmable, verifiable information and to sound the alarm, if you will, that we are headed down a very dangerous and deadly path of destruction. So I'm adding my voice to the chorus of others from amongst us, past and present, who have tried to raise the consciousness of our people. On the book, I had referenced one of our ancestors on the back of the book. And this ancestor went by the name of Neferti. Neferti is from the 4th dynasty, and that goes back about 2650 BCE. So that's almost 5,000 years ago. And the point that I wanted to make by putting this on the back of the book was to underscore how long our people have turned a deaf ear to potentially life-giving or liberating information. This book is being presented as a problem-solving root cause analysis. Any effort that is not root cause is a waste of time.
What do you mean by that, root cause?
Root cause is, and this is something that I learned to some level of proficiency as a production supervisor, because my responsibility was to ensure that the production lines kept running. And if for any reason that production line went down, it was my responsibility to get it back up and to find out what the problem was. And in order to find out that problem, there's a process called root cause analysis. And the purpose of root cause analysis is to get to the root of the problem, to eradicate the problem. If you do not get to the root cause of the problem, where you start off with the 5 whys, so you can get to the core root of the problem, this is the only way that you eliminate problems. We African people, unfortunately, respond to all of this madness that is going on with us with Band-Aid effect responses, not cause response, but an effect response. And this is clearly explains why nothing changes for us, because we do not go to the root cause of why X, Y, and Z is happening.
How would we, just for example, what would be a policy that is root cause oriented that would help us deal, like, for example, let's say the violence in our communities, or our educational problems, either one? Okay,
well, let's go with the educational one. Mm-hmm. The root cause of embracing someone's educational system is that you will be taught to look at the world through the eyes of those people. It will not be your view. Mm-hmm. That is a root problem for embracing someone else's educational institutions. And the educational institutions are designed to deform the way that you think. So if you embrace their institutions, then they control the way that you think. That is a core root cause problem.
So our most effective remedy for that would be to move toward independent schools that are controlled by African Americans, with African American curricula that is designed for our own progress and benefit.
Absolutely, that is exactly what we have to do. And this is the other thing: the educational institutions have to teach you to be problem-solving, critical thinking individuals. You have to be taught to be a problem-solving, critical thinking individual, and you have to be taught to the lessons of survival, or what it takes to survive. And we don't get those lessons where African people are concerned, because you're being taught by someone else not to think those ways. So it is a root cause problem, embracing their institutions. That's a problem. That's just one of them. In regards to the violence on the streets, you know, it is so complex, but it is attributed first and foremost to the breakup of the disintegration of the black family. So you got the disintegration of the black family, which means you got most of our brothers are ending up in these penal institutions, which are nothing more than modern day slave plantations. That's exactly what they are. But you have these sisters out here who are trying to raise these brothers and sisters, and because of economic pressures controlled by them as well, by design, they're unable to do that. So the streets and the media are raising our children. The streets and the media are raising our children, and you're finding that the embracing of their religious institutions as well have a root cause problem also, because their religious institutions teach you to be irrational and irresponsible. And it's and what I mean by irrational, I mean irrational in your approach to life. If you think that someone outside of yourself and your kind is going to take care of you, preserve, protect, and provide for you, that is irrational. And if you don't understand that it is your absolute responsibility, and I mean 100%, to provide for yourself, provide and preserve and protect yourself and your kind on every level, that is your job. And if you refuse to do that for whatever reason, it falls back on you.
Interesting, because Just two quick caveats here. The need to develop independent institutions is often a need that is best prosecuted or perpetrated, let's say, by folks with faith-based kinds of commitments, commitments that transcend the usual kind of rewards of a salary and those kinds of traditional incentives that usually folks who are dedicated enough to go way outside the call of duty are motivated by faith-based kinds of motivations, and so it would seem to me that if you want us to develop independent institutions, we're going to have to allow for religious inspiration in order to get us to move beyond our traditional blind alley kind of thinking that we normally do. Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Isn't there a contradiction?
Yes. No. I would think, and what your point that you're making is a good one, because we do have to work together on levels, and because of where we are right now, we need to all come together. And I know we have these different faith-based, and that's going to be a problem later on as you begin to move forward. That becomes an issue. But right now, we need to all get together and address those issues, even though they're, like you say, where these independent schools are concerned, there's some faith initiatives or inspirations behind those. We can work with that initially to get these independent institutions going. But then the work begins when you start working on the curriculum, because we don't want to replicate the same thing just to say that it's a black school, but you got the same teaching as a white school. That's where the religious issues will become a point of contention.
Okay, and brothers like Dr. Umar Johnson and Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu talk about the need for different kinds of teaching styles for black people.
Yes,
that we have a different we respond to different pedagogical methods than the traditional European. That would be a part of your assessment as well.
Absolutely, we are different people.
Yes. All right. Well, I got a lot of questions, man, but I'm sure that my callers have even more. So let's get to them and let them get in on this. Steve, good evening. You're on Talk of Chicago with Nkosi Mundari.
Yes, I'd like to ask a couple of questions if I might, but if you'll give me a little bit of latitude. With regard to Larry's comments, again, apparently selective hearing. I made quite clear that there are exceptions with regard to the right to vote, and those include people who are not citizens, who are not naturalized, who weren't born here, and also persons who have committed certain crimes, i.e. felony. Obviously, in some states you have a right to vote after having been convicted and served your time. Others you do not. But there is no graduated right to vote, unlike, for instance, the Second Amendment, which provides for a well-regulated militia. And for Larry, in terms of research, I would suggest 1934, the National Firearms Act, 1938, the Federal Firearms Act, the Gun Control Act of 1968, the Law Enforcement Officers Protection Act, 1986, the Crime Control Act of 1990, 1994, the Beatty Handgun Violence Prevention Act. So in other words, we have enacted limitations with regard to owning and also altering weapons and registering weapons over many, many years. And guess what? Chicago in the early 1980s, other than the grandfathered clause, which allowed you to have a gun if you already had one before that, barred you from, in fact, registering or owning a handgun, for decades. So did that go unnoticed by the NRA and other pro-gun control advocates? Because it's obviously clear that for 3 decades those laws were in place. So what happened? They were sprinkled with magic powder, and no one was able to read past the obviously constitutional problems that existed for people like Larry.
Yeah, but Steve, I think it's pretty clear that Larry is rendering a tendentious interpretation of the Second Amendment, especially because judicial, as you point out, there have been several measures that have elaborated on that Second Amendment provision.
And to his benefit, I mean, I think he calls in and then starts down a path of reason and rationality, but then goes completely, off the deep end, because basically he's arguing that there is no debate. That basically anyone who argues that you can limit gun ownership is just simply wrong constitutionally, because there is no other side of the argument.
Okay, would you like to respond to Brother?
Yes,
yes. Uh-huh.
Yes, I would. And I do think that with regard to this perspective, I think it's problematic on a number of levels. One, again, we look at the social science in terms of how Americans regard each other. And yes, you have a tremendous problem when you look at people who are over the age of 50, 60, and 70 in this country. So if you're white in America and you're over 60, yes, your tendencies towards racism and bigotry and regarding African Americans or other people as the other, yes, that exists to a high degree. But when you look at people under 30, we've made tremendous progress in terms of people not looking at each other in terms of race, of looking at each other as equals. So the notion that, that this is a stagnant system. Also in America, the notion of what is white. I mean, when Alan Dershowitz wrote over a decade ago, when did the Jews become white people? He was talking about that fluidity, because in 1950 there were hotels where, you could not check in if you were Jewish. Yet today, Jewish people are considered white people. Greeks, Italians.
Well, Noah Ignatieff wrote a book called "How the Irish Became White." I think he was the one who set the template.
So again, these notions that these things are set in stone, whereas what history teaches us and modern sociology teaches us is that we're expanding the definition of who is inclusive, and again, it's based in large part on generational attitudes. So
okay, hold on for a minute, Steve. Let Nkosi respond to that.
I just wanted to say, brother, thank you for your comment, but I just wanted to say those individuals that you identified as under 30 and being more diverse, etc., embrace the very same institutions that produce those who are in their 50s and 60s who are making decisions that ensure that nothing changes for us. So those individuals under 30s are embracing the same institutions that produce those who are in their 50s and 60s who have those same attitudes, those very same attitudes that you just spoke of.
Well, with all due respect, that's just not true. If you look at, in fact, a whole slew of issues, everything from birth control to abortion to foreign policy to gay rights, there's a huge difference. In other words, all of those issues, the issue of women's right to choose, if it were left to people under the age of 35 in this country, would not be an issue right now. The same thing with regard to gay rights, again, abortion, birth control, foreign policy. I mean, there's a whole slew of things that people who are younger, including race issues related to race, because, again, that shows an entirely different perspective among younger people with regard to the support of institutions that their parents and grandparents support and ideas that they support. So, again, the scholarship is quite clear, so I'm not sure where you're getting this.
Well, what I'm getting is just clear observation, and I would contest that if you ask anyone in the communities that I come from of any age, of that age group, if they feel like things are improving and things are getting better for us, I would have to think that they're going to say that things are the way that they've always been, and nothing has changed. And as a matter of fact, things are getting progressively worse for those who are targeted.
But again, the numbers don't seem to bear. Well,
but Steve, the numbers of African American wealth, as it relates to the overall wealth of the community of the nation, the numbers have actually decreased. Our share of the national wealth has actually decreased throughout our history, and so we're not in fact as in terms of our economic wherewithal, we're not even.
Right, and the question is, we do not compare, for instance, poor African Americans to wealthy white Americans. What we've seen is that if you look at the bottom 20% in this country, irrespective of race, they've all seen a dramatic fall off with regard to their earning capacity, their wealth. All of this happening in the last 40 years in terms of real wages, real wealth, standard of living. So African Americans are not alone in that regard.
Yeah, but the proportion is
pretty much
because
African Americans
it's pretty much static, and in fact, has decreased for African Americans, according to most statistics.
Right, exactly. The less wealth you begin with, the higher the unemployment, the less the educational level of achievement, the more likely you are to fall backwards when an economic downturn happens. I mean, that's simply the case. But it's also the case for white Americans, and as a matter of fact, Hispanic Americans did worse in the last several years than African Americans as far as losing wealth. And that's another issue with regard to population. I mean, if this were such a driving force, I mean, the single largest reduction in population groups, if we want to divide people up with regard to race, has been among white people in America. Today, there is a movement towards a path to legalization for over 11 million persons, most of them non-white. So, in other words, if white people were so concerned about keeping this nation white and keeping what is theirs, why is it that they are not the ones that are advocating, this mass deportation? But right now, it's just a question of what kind of process of legitimizing those that are here illegally is going to take place. So, again...
Okay. Any response to that, Nkosi?
No. I appreciate the brother's comments, and I would be hesitant to refer to numbers where my people's lives are being concerned.
But aren't statistics the only way really to get any kind of objective view or objective of gauge of our relative progress?
Yeah, I would say that statistics and numbers has its place, but when you're dealing with an obvious threat, I would be hesitant to play games with numbers there. Like I said in the book, I'm simply stating the obvious. What I have come up with is plain for everyone to see.
All right, Steve, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Okay, let's go to Sadiki. Hey, Sadiki, how are you, my brother? You're on with Nkosi Mundari. How are you?
How you brother doing?
Evening, brother.
I'm calling here from Boston.
All right.
And actually, what I've been doing is trying to make contact with, Black Conscious Radio so that folks can get what's happening from a black perspective about what's happening here. And I think it
certainly appreciate that, man.
Fits within the realm of what your guest is there to comment on. Let me just say that, first of all, your previous caller, I'm sitting here, I'm as a grandfather, and I'm saying to myself, well, the unfortunate aspect is that, where we are right now is that, unfortunately, the folks who are 30 and under, who are African, don't even understand the onslaught that's going on. I think that fits within the context of what the brother's talking about in his book, is that we're being hit from all sides, whether it be prison, drugs, poor education, healthcare. And the other piece, too, is turning that around about what we can do for self. But the Boston situation here is that, I heard one of your callers talking about, getting a black perspective in terms of what's happening here.
Right.
And let me just say, first and foremost, let me start off by saying the headline you see is "We Got 'Em." The reality is that the person that they now have, that they captured, what had happened was that he was hiding in that boat. And they had not found anyone, and they actually had declared an all clear, and were moving people out of the neighborhood, saying, okay, you can come home now, it's no problem. So an elderly couple, who in fact had been in their house all day, said they just came up to get some air. And the husband noticed some blood on the top there on the boat, and he climbed up to see what was going on and saw the person in the boat and called the police, and they came back in. And yes, there was a lot of firepower going on, but the bottom line is that he almost got away. They didn't catch anybody until that elderly person called and said it's the person in that boat.
That's right.
Now, let me just say also that the mindset in terms of the whole issue of what was going on, that you always hear the thing about we. Whenever there's a tragedy like this, they talk about we. Well, I can only say that here in Boston, with what went on, look, it was a tragedy, and we sympathize with the victims in terms of what went on, but there was a different perspective here in terms of that downtown Boston was vacant. And the streets, because it wasn't locked down. It wasn't locked down exactly the way you described earlier. No traffic hardly. In the black community, in our community, there wasn't a lot of traffic because public transportation was shut down. But what was interesting to me is that in many respects, it was business for you as usual. Like, for instance, I had to take my grandson over to Children's Hospital for a checkup, and what happened was that they said, well, we're in lockdown, you can't go in. And so I'm saying, well, I can't get my grandson checked. they're paranoid. I'm trying to get my grandson to. I'm riding along saying to myself, you know what? This is a tragedy, but it's nice to ride out here and know that I'm not going to be racially profiled because there's no police out there. And then at the mall in our community, it was jammed because black folk were shopping. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is that we understand, even if we don't consciously understand it, that black folk understand that, you know, we live with daily terror in this country on a regular basis, and it's gone on for 400 years, so we react differently. Sympathetic to the situation and understanding the fact that the bottom line is that the Boston bombing is only the tip of the iceberg, if you will, in terms of what's going to come down on this country because of the fact that there's so much hatred going on. Because, you know, I had someone saying to me, oh, it was terrible what happened to, you know, the little boy. I said, it was terrible. I said, but did you see the picture of the 11 babies in Afghanistan who had been killed
by the drone attack?
The drone, Obama. I said, they tell us all the time, we don't hate the people here. We hate your government. And so, unfortunately, you all are collateral damage in terms of what we do. So, you know, I just want to put that. I've been, you know, just trying to put it up to understand.
Well, I hear that, brother. I appreciate
that. We
that,
reacted differently from. It wasn't a we thing here. It was a we in terms of sympathy, but not in terms of how black folk reacted here. Yeah.
That's often the case, my brother. Any response, Nkosi?
No, I just enjoy what the brother had to say. Excellent insight, brother. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that.
All right, Sadiqi. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, brother. All right. Brother Sadiqi from Boston. He often calls with that perspective, and it's good to hear the brother. Let's go to Maceo. Hey, Maceo, how you doing, my brother?
Hey, Salim, I'm doing great.
Yes, sir.
And hello to Nkosi.
Yes, sir.
Hello, brother Nkosi, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, and good evening to the WVON family, Woods and Albert. Salim, you mentioned Professor Willie Dixon earlier in your show.
I sure did.
Yeah, and I'm a friend of his, and I talk to him from time to time, and what he said about what you were saying about you boogie your way through to the gas chamber.
Yes.
He based that upon us majoring in minor things and minoring in major things. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
And I believe that Brother Nkosi, it seemed as if, you know, that I don't know for sure, but that makes so much sense, you know, to me, what he was saying, Professor Willie Dixon, about that. But anyway, in reference to what you were saying, Brother Nkosi, about the educational piece in terms of the education, as Dr. Carter G. Woodson would say, the miseducation of our children.
Yes.
And there are certain components within the educational system that are a necessity, like math, science, and biology, but the other things in terms of the history component especially is grossly missing. And when Steve was talking about, you know, children or people under 30 being together, you know, existing together, for a large, in a big sense, in a large sense, that is true. But you know, our children that do coexist amongst other people like that, they have absolutely no concept knowledge of their history, and they are not, and that's where that major minor thing comes in, Salim and Nkosi. They have no need for it because the people that they are associating with primarily do not focus on that. And so when you go to see a movie like Jackie Robinson and you hear young people say afterwards, I didn't know that existed. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They didn't know that this racism existed, and it's because of that lack of knowledge of self and history. But anyway, in terms of the school system, because the public school system is primarily where our children, most of our children, go to, and because we don't have as many of those specialized schools to teach that necessary African or that type of education that we so desperately need,
a relevant curriculum.
Right. Mm-hmm. There has to be some. What would you say in terms of what can be done in terms of compensating, in addition to what is being taught in the system. I mean, because I say that would take a whole lot of work to
alter that curriculum course.
Yeah,
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, man. CO.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
And Koski?
Yes, I wanted to thank the brother and then just respond. It's important for us to acquire knowledge from any quarter, and he referenced the sciences, and they are critically important. But what's a tragedy for us is that we have allowed others to teach us our history and our religion, and you never allow anyone to teach you your history and your religion. And this is why, or part of the reason why, we are in the situation that we are in, and that nothing changes for us because we continue to embrace the same institutions as I mentioned before. It is these European institutions that we embrace, and I'm talking specific like the institution of economics, politics, education, and religion, that have created this mess that we are in and we find ourselves in. And our response is to embrace the very same the very same institutions to clean up the mess. We cannot continue to embrace institutions and expect different results. This is a mark of insanity to continue to do the same things over and over again, expecting different results. And that kind of brings to mind for me a question, and it's a rhetorical question. And the question is, what kind of a man depends on another man to take care of them, provide for them, preserve them, protect them, and to supply all of their wants and needs? I will submit that this is not a man at all, but a dependent boy who needs his father to take care of him. As a people, we are consumers, and we produce nothing from earth to product.
When you say that, my brother, it reminds me so much of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings and what the Nation of Islam attempted to do, and to provide an alternative to this system that you're talking about. And when you say that, we're dependent on these other folks, I wonder, what alternative do you suggest?
Well,
and especially economic system.
Economically,
I mean, because well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, given the situation that we're in, we have to start somewhere. So we have to rely on them for everything. So we got to go to them for economics. We have to go to them for medicine, education, everything. We need to begin a re-educating of the mind, and we have to start somewhere. And this is where supporting organizations and institutions that stand or working towards freedom and independence, because we have only two options: liberation and liquidation. Brother Sam Yet wrote a book in 1968 called The Choice. And Dr. Bobby Wright, who was one of my favorite warrior scholars, reviewed that book, and he said that these words were worth the price of the book alone. And this is Dr. Bobby Wright saying this, that these were the words were worth the price of the book alone. He said, we have two choices. One is liberation. The second is liquidation. He says, right now what we have is pacification. Pacification does not mean liberation, and pacification does not stop liquidation. Those are powerful, powerful words. We need to embrace those.
But it's a binary, my brother. I mean, it's an either or binary, and we are, as a people, are caught between those binaries. We don't have the luxury really of opting out of this system, because there's so many of us, as Maceo pointed out, the vast majority of us are ensnared by this system.
Yes.
And so to urge us to put all of our energy into a group of folks who are talking about an alternative without any immediate reward for that. I mean, their parents were children in school now. Are you advising them to put their hopes into a millenarian program, a utopian program in the future where their children are suffering right now and they want some relief right now for what's going on? How do you respond to that? Or isn't it evading the point by simply talking about these utopian possibilities?
Well, I certainly wouldn't say it's evading the point, because if you look at it realistically, we do only have two choices. When you have identified that someone has targeted you for elimination, and they mean business by that, then your responsibility is to respond to that threat. And if your response is to make sure that you take care of the immediate things, the threat does not stop. The onslaught continues. So when do you address the onslaught? Because the onslaught does not stop. And that's what the brother was saying, Brother Sam, that we do not have these other options. So I certainly get your point. You know, we have an immediate necessity, and we have this threat. So we have to begin to work and dialogue on the way to kind of merge that into it. But if we completely ignore it and just continue to pay attention to these systems that are in place and continue to embrace them because they meet immediate needs, then the predictable outcome is going to be deserved because we didn't respond.
I got you. We get lost in the symptoms rather than to deal with the cause.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go to Brother Mike. Hey, Mike, how you doing, my brother? You on with
Hey, Salim, how you doing? This is Mike from Dallas.
Hello
to your guest.
All right.
How you doing, brother?
I just want to present two points, and the first one is for you, Brother Salim, and the next one is for your guest. Do you believe in freedom of press?
Absolutely.
Okay, so why is the government waiting for the NRA to tell who we can publish? If the press, if the Huffington Post or Mike from Dallas on his radio show or Salim MuWakkil started publishing the names of people that have guns, there's nothing the NRA could do. So I think that is something that the private citizenry can take up and not wait for the NRA to get approval from these bootleg senators and congressmen. That was my first point to you. To your guest, I'm of the mindset that there is no we. We have people African-American people driving around in Mercedes-Benz and, living the champagne life. They are not going to take up the cause of the less fortunate. I just don't see that happening. But what I do see happening, and the other thing is I work with children. I do not see that racist mindset in children. It is being taught to them, and although I agree with a part of what Steve said, I predominantly agree with you because the bulk of society is training the next generation. Eventually, they're going along with what is called the status quo and greed. I think your premise is very well thought out, but I think as long as the bulk the one percenters continue to use the vicissitude with the mindset of being obtuse, I think we're going to continue to have the problems. And so you have this diminishing capacity of the young generation of blacks to their history and their culture, and those that don't are destined to eventually be locked up or thrown in jail or not get a job or become discouraged and give up. The others that make it through are saying, well, I made it, and I'm not reaching back to help others. So I would like to know, number one, here's a big solution. If we could figure out how to unite the entire continent of Africa, just like Europe has and the United States has unity, or the European nations has a certain amount of unity, we don't have that on the continent of Africa.
I think let Nkosi respond to your
I'll hang up and listen.
All right.
God bless you.
Appreciate it, Mike. All right.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the comment, brother. I think that ties right into this work that I put together. It is literature like this, and from other brothers and sisters, this is the kind of literature that we need to begin to change the mindset and the thinking of. And of course, there has been so much damage done to us. There is going to be collateral damage to the point that there are going to be many of our brothers and sisters who will look at this and say that that's not happening at all, period, and we won't get any support. But that's one of the problems, and that is a byproduct of what has happened to us. So this kind of a literature and embracing the fact that we are under attack and that there is a genocidal process in place, we need to embrace those realities and begin to move forward and support, again, organizations and institutions that are working towards freedom and independence and a different mindset in regards to the institutions that we presently embrace. You know, the kind of warfare that we're dealing with, you know, it's not traditional warfare anymore. You know, traditional warfare or open warfare is, you know, bullets and guns, tanks, missiles and drones, etc. But what we're dealing with right now is a more insidious, more effective type of warfare, and that is silent warfare. And that's what we are under attack with, is silent warfare. And what makes it so insidious is that it is silent and it is gradual, and the victims are unaware most times that they are under attack. And these warfares are chemical warfare, which is the drugs and alcohol, and you have germ warfare, which is the AIDS virus and other diseases. There's also a reproductive warfare, which is birth control, and Planned Parenthood is funded to the hilt, and they make sure that those institutions are functioning well in our communities. Also, there's immoral and reproductive warfare, and that has to do with deviant sexual behaviors or homosexual behaviors that attack the family structure. And again, it is a strong family that makes a strong nation. So if they target your family and make sure that it is destroyed utterly, like ours almost is, to the tune of 80% roughly of the black families headed by a single black female sister, that is not an accident. There's nutritional warfare as well. Malnutrition and starvation. There's weather warfare. We've experienced that recently out in the South. And then there's spiritual warfare, where religion is concerned, and I had addressed that a little bit earlier. So this is what we're dealing with, and this is the most insidious form of warfare.
Your book, my brother, has some of the titles in your book. Genocide, by any name is still genocide. The Subject of Death, Think, The Power of Belief, Slavery, The Crusades, Was Jesus Black? Jesus of Nazareth, Critical Analysis, The Great War, Unite or Perish, Culture and Civilization, Nature and the Butterfly. And that's pretty provocative there, brother. Explain what that nature and the butterfly is.
That has to do with the metamorphism of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, and that transformation and their adaptability and that whole process is you can kind of translate that into a spiritual process. But I break it down in the book, and it's a nice correlation between nature and a spiritual process.
All right. You also have Lessons of Survival, A Nature's Walk, Warfare from 3000 BC Forward, Economics 101, African Familyhood, African Goddesses, Reparations, A Coward's Move. Uh-oh. Run that, brother.
The chapter on reparations, I was compelled to respond to that simply because we are in a beggar's position. This reparations movement is not new. This is something that's been around. And once someone has decided by their actions not to respond to your request, and you don't have a backup plan, that's a coward's move to me. That's a fear position to me.
Well, you know, you can say that about Nat Turner. I mean, the people didn't, the slave masters didn't respond to his requests, and you know, we moved from that point on, and we kept requesting, and so then eventually, you know, liberation or emancipation happened. So I mean, isn't it a progressive process? Doesn't it evolve? Don't we evolve as humans into new understandings?
Well, giving you an example of Brother Nate, you know, he did make some requests and they weren't they weren't responded to, but he did have a plan B. And he went into plan B, and it turned out the way history said it turned out. My point was, in regards to us, is that we don't have that plan B. And we continue to, hat in hand, ask for someone to give us some crumbs from their table.
Well, brother, we were, as you point out, man, we were decimated by the transatlantic slave trade and chattel slavery.
Yes.
All human societies require recompense. That is a natural law as well as the law of survival. That when you go back in history, you find that all vanquished civilizations require, if they were vanquished in some way that was considered unethical, that they would require some kind of recompense. And that you know, United Nations has enshrined this notion of reparations and recompense, and many nations have received it. In fact, that's why Israel is what it is today, because of that recompense. And so to ask us to deny that human process of recompense seems to me to be ahistorical.
Well, it's interesting that the example that you gave about the Jews getting their reparations, and they did, and our experience preceded theirs, and we're still begging, and they have military and nuclear weapons, etc., and we continue to beg.
Well, I mean, they begged as well until they were in a position to demand, or they arranged a situation in which they intelligently understood the international situation, that they aligned themselves with forces that would manifest their desire or their aspiration. I don't see why we can't, you know, if we are the fount of intelligence, why can't we similarly engineer a way that allows us to manifest our aspiration in much a similar way? By using the forces of history for our benefit.
I would just respond to that with one answer, and that's black skin. That's the difference right there. The Jews were Europeans. It's the same people. And when you mention United Nations is controlled.
Well, but the Nazis, the so-called Aryan Federation or Aryan tribal conglomeration didn't think of them as Europeans.
Right. But when you see them, you know, you ask a kid, is that a white person or is that?
I know
they are. They're Europeans.
We may say that, but I mean they experienced existential damage from the way the Germans treated them.
I agree.
And so the point that I'm making is that you seem to be saying that we need to give up any attempt at universal justice and simply forget about it, and leave the case of a struggle for justice to somebody else, and just concentrate on our own. It's kind of a Booker T. Washington versus Du Bois kind of situation you see, you know, that we seem to be replicating here.
You know, I would ask the question, you know, even if they were to give reparations and that the focus seems to be monetary, even if we were to get the reparations and the condition that our people are in right now, nothing would change. And I mean absolutely nothing. We would do with that money what we do with the money, or the 800 billion plus or so that we go through our hands right now.
I know, but people are talking about reparations as a form of similar to a Marshall Plan, which is what they did in Europe when Europe was decimated by World War II. They didn't say nobody told them to stop begging.
Yeah,
and to you know pick themselves up by their own bootstraps. They got currency exchanges.
They did.
And outright loans that required no payback.
Yeah.
And that because people realize is that the only way that you can repair a damaged people is by resources.
Right.
And I just don't, you know, it seems to me that is a natural position to take, and to call that begging, that seems to me to be ahistorical.
Okay.
Again, you know.
Okay. And then one more thing about the Marshall Plan, the example you gave about the Marshall Plan, and again, it goes back to the example of the Israeli, the Jews, is the Marshall Plan, Germany, etc. They were white, and once again, the reparations, the Marshall Plan that they got, it's in place. They're thriving. Israel's thriving. We're still begging.
All right, my brother. Let's go to, before we have to go in for this break. Let's go to Mila. Hey, my brother, how you doing?
Alafia, how you doing,
Alafia,
brother?
I'm well.
I'm enjoying the program.
Yes, sir.
Got a lot of points, but first, I want to speak to Steve. And hello, brother. And
Hey,
Cozy.
brother. Hey, brother.
All right. First, I want to speak to Steve, right? So he always calls in and he cites quantitative data. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that part of the issue is that you could frame that data how you want to frame it, and it could speak to what you wanted to speak to, right? But he never really cites qualitative data. And so it's important not just to look at numbers, but also to look at interviews, right? Look at the very people that you're trying to study. And we all know that when you look at quantitative data, there are a lot of things you have to consider. For example, how was the sample constructed? Is the sample representative of the larger society?
Yes.
Right? And so when you talk about the people under 30, who is specifically is he talking about, right? Because we do know that trends develop in samples that don't necessarily explain the trends or even reflective of the trends in the larger society. And we also have to think about social science in this way. Social science is really an examination of the association between variables, not necessarily causation. In other words, it doesn't really say if the independent variable has any influence on the dependent variable. Okay. But what it is saying is that there's an association, which is not real science. Okay, so let's just be clear on that. Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, brother.
So, but he never really. So, if you want to cite data, let's look at some data. Okay, I recently pulled a report from Heartland Alliance. They publish a poverty report every year, and I was looking at the data to get prepared for a panel discussion. And 30% of our people in Illinois live in poverty, live below the poverty line.
30% of African Americans, or just in general?
30% of African Americans.
Okay.
And our rate is double that of the state rate. Okay, the average state, the average person in poverty in Illinois, we double that as African Americans. If you look at us in terms of our poverty rate in the country, we nearly doubled the national average in the country. Okay, if you look at the labor force participation rate over the past decade, there's been a decrease in African Americans participating in the labor market. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Not to mention the mass incarceration rate. All right,
Mila, you know what, my brother? I want you to. I want to keep talking to you. I want you to keep making these points, but we are quickly running to the top of the hour, and so I want you to hold on, my brother, if that's cool.
Yes,
right?
Sir. That's cool. That's
All
cool.
right.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mila. Brother Mila is delivering some invaluable information. Him and Cozy will get into some kind of exchange, and we'll be right back for that. And we're back. It is 9:08. Salim MuWakkil here. I'm with my brother and Kosi Moondari. Man, I'm gonna get.
You got it.
Moondari, I got it for real this time. And we're talking about many things, primarily about the brother's book, which is Genocide by Any Other Name is Still Genocide. And one of Brother Nkosi's gigs over the years has been at the African World Research Institute. And a lot of our listeners or a lot of Chicagoans really are not aware of what is the African World Research Institute up to, and why should we be concerned about what it's up to?
Well, the African World Research Institute, the doors opened there in May of 1996, and the doors are open to this very day. Actually has an anniversary coming up next May. It'll be 17 years that the Institute has been there. It's over at 1719 East 75th Street. It's a couple of blocks east of Stony Island on 75th Street. It's a big sign outside there. But the African World Research Institute was founded to offer the African people a different direction, to offer the people a new spiritual concepts. Ankh theology is taught there on Sundays from 10 to 2, and social anatomy. Ankh theology is the spiritual concept that is based in nature.
Spell it.
Ankh, A-N-K-H. Ankh is the very ancient African symbol with the cross and the circle at the top. That's the Ankh symbol. But that Ankh symbol predates Egypt. But Ankh theology is taught on Sundays there, 10 to 2. In the afternoon, social anatomy is taught. Social anatomy is the scientific study of the structure and functioning of nations, or how nations should function. There are 12 social systems in place, and those are taught there. See, the African World Research Institute is offering African people to rebuild our own modern and independent civilization and culture. And degrees are offered there. You can get a bachelor's degree at the African World Research Institute, including a doctorate degree.
All right. Let's go back to Mila. Brother Mila, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Brother Nkosi, I appreciate your work, man. I think it's an important perspective we should embrace, you know. But back to Steve again. Social science, I value it. I read it. You have to, you know. But I think that's not the end all. And again, we have to be clear what social science is. Again, it's an examination of the relationship between variables, not necessarily causation. For example, we know that there's an association between poverty and crime, but no social scientist can say that poverty caused crime. They can't prove it. So that's not really science, okay? And then the other part of that is, how was that sample constructed? Did you get a bunch of liberal white people under 30 from a college campus, or did you go out to Idaho or Montana and get some of those skinheads and put that in the sample, okay? Because that would give you a much more accurate assessment of racial attitudes in America. Not only that, if you look at what the Southern Poverty Law Center has said, since President Obama been elected, we've seen an increase in hate groups.
So geometric increase.
Huh?
A geometric increase.
Yes. So how does the social science speak to that? You know. But more importantly, I think that part of Steve's problem and part of his problem with his analysis is he sticks strictly to quantitative data. But I know he's a sociologist. I can just kind of tell how he talks. But I think that what he should do is go and revisit William Julius Wilson's book, When Work Disappears. He has a chapter in there where he does a qualitative study, where he actually interviewed employers. And what you find in that research is that employers are enormously racist toward black men. They don't want to hire black men. You know, they suspect of us. They think we criminals. They think we lazy. They think we angry. This is what they said in their interviews. So that gives us a lot more insight than numbers, okay?
And it also forced William Julius Wilson to alter his perspective about class being dominant in the poverty question. When his book, the declining significance of race, he had to reevaluate his previous conclusion.
That's right. And you know what's interesting, right, is what the brother said about the black family. I agree with that 100%. I think most of what you see in our city is a direct result of the dissolution of black families. But you know what's, back to Julius Wilson again in his book, The Truly Disadvantaged. He cites data where he look at, major cities in the United States in the 1940s. And do you know that 80% of black families in the 1940s were headed by a two-parent household?
Yes.
Now, here's what makes Brother Nkosi's thesis very powerful in terms of, maybe some kind of intentionality in terms of trying to destroy black folk. Because if you look at from 1940 to now, you've seen a dissolution of black families, right? And I think that's in direct contrast, or at least there's an association between that and deindustrialization. Okay, yes. So we've seen work disappears. We've seen, you know, blue collar jobs leave this country. In fact, since 2001, according to the Economic Policy Institute, we've seen 2.1 million jobs leave this country. Okay, this is just in the last decade. We're not even talking about what Julius Wilson has documented from 1967 to 1987. So I think that, you know, systematically, for sure, and economically, black men have been emasculated. And of course, if you can't take care of your family, and he talks about the marriage.
But tell me this, Mia. Do you think? Do you see it as being intentional, or simply the collateral dynamic of economic restructuring?
I think it's both. I think on the one hand, it's certainly collateral damage because of the greed of corporate America, and they figure they're going to get the most out of what they can get by expanding the labor pool in the era of globalization. So, for example, now that we're in the era of globalization, there's been an increase or an expansion of the labor market, which drives down the price of labor. Right. In other words, they don't have to depend on you for nothing. They can they can go send their corporation to China, right? So that is the collateral damage. But on the other hand, it's intentional. They say, look, instead of arguing with these Negroes and white people about a union and about paying them a fair wage, let's go to China and just exploit folks.
But isn't that the economic incentive rather than a racist incentive?
I think it's both. I think that the civil rights movement really, really shook white people. I really believe that, and I think that there is some race involved. Now, we don't have any, if we want to take Steve's perspective, we don't have any scientific data to prove that. And it certainly would be more convincing that it was an economic incentive. But you have to believe, based on the history of this country, that there had to be some level of race, or some level of a racial element that incentivized them to move. Yes. But I can be totally incorrect. But and again, this deindustrialization.
Brother Nkosi says you're not incorrect.
Okay. And this deindustrialization. Now think about what I'm going to say. And I know other callers on again, so I don't want to hog up the time.
I appreciate you, man.
But think about the deindustrialization and what happened, right? So once these blue collar jobs left, it wasn't just black folks being impacted; it was white people being impacted too. And so, but they had to create jobs, and the way they created these jobs was the expansion of the prison industrial complex, and of course, again,
scavenger economy. A scavenger economy. They're feasting on the social failure of black people.
Absolutely, and black people, unfortunately, we didn't keep up with the trends. But last but not least, I don't really know how we can get out of this, especially given the fact that capitalism is in place. Okay, I just don't see it. You know, I mean, capitalism is very, very, very entrenched in our society
and very resilient.
Yeah. So I don't know how you combat something like that. You know, we have to think and we have to keep discussing and having solution-oriented discussions. So,
thank you, brother.
But
appreciate
y'all
it,
be blessed, and thank you for the time.
All right, thank you for the contribution, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much,
brother Nkosi.
Wow, the brother was very insightful. Had some great insight. One of the points that I wanted to make in regards to whether it's intentional or not is this: the continent of Africa is the most minerally rich piece of real estate on this planet, and it is being overrun right now by foreigners. And the reason that the Europeans-led nations want us off or out of the way is because they want direct access to those resources, because their intent is to populate other planets. I mean, they don't have those space stations up there because they're throwing stepper sets. These are serious people, and they need resources in order to do that. And we're squabbling over there on the continent, hacking each other up over Islam and Christianity, and the foreigners are over there taking up every inch of it. And that's another point I want to make about us being targeted specifically.
Okay. Well, man, I got so many questions, but let's go back to let's see, Madeline. Hey, Madeline, how are you?
Yes, Brother Salim, how are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm really enjoying this conversation, and
I'm glad.
I've been holding on. I've heard so many points brought up. I probably, and I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I'm going to try to
take your time, sister.
A few things. The point that, and by the way, I'm so glad that you have Brother Nkosi on that. I think that's a conversation that needs to go into many, many circles in terms of what he's talking about, especially in the area of education, which is one of my passions, and how the lack of critical thinking. It's interesting he brought up the point, Brother Nkosi, it's interesting you made the point about how the violence is related to the lack of critical thinking skills that these children are not getting in the school.
Yes.
And I've been saying to a number of people, in fact, I have some blogs, and I'm behind with my blog writing, but I'm going to write a piece on that relative to the violence. Because I've been saying, in fact, and you and I, we know that if children knew how to think critically and thus how to deal with conflict resolution and every other thing, the violence would not happen. It wouldn't happen because they could talk through their issues. Violence comes about, when there's an inability to verbally communicate, just like animals do. They don't verbalize, so that, they get angry with each other and they fight. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, that's kind of where this is going to. And so I'm glad that you brought that point up. But I'm going to address something else that you said, too, about what's going on in Africa with regard to foreigners practically overrunning Africans there. I have, Salim knows this, I'm developing a solar energy company. And I just, a couple of weeks ago, I was put in contact with a brother, it's a gentleman, and someone who he works for. They're going to be putting me in a position so I can get in contact with some people in Ethiopia and in Nigeria, because those are two countries where, in particular, that I'm interested in putting solar energy into. And what's been happening is that the Chinese, Japanese, and in fact, recently, I know there's a white-owned company that's getting ready to develop a solar power plant in Ethiopia. There are no blacks over there doing solar energy installations. None. When I called this brother up a couple of weeks ago, he said, "Oh my God, I'm so glad that someone, African American, is coming over here coming to Africa," because he said, we're just not there.
Well, hold on for a minute, Sister Madeline. Brother Nkosi, how does your theories relate to the need for a more green economy, or those issues of industrialization?
Well, the industrialization is still tied to, like the brother mentioned before, about capitalism, and that's going to be a really tough nut for us to crack, because the capitalism is, and the money is a scourge. I mean, the way that it is designed and set up is designed and set up to produce this madness that we see. So in regards to my piece here and the industrialization process and capitalism, all of those things we need in place for ourselves. And it'll always take me back to, as long as we embrace and continue to embrace their way, we're going to continue to get the results that we're getting.
But what is our way?
Well, our way would be to take a scientific, nature-based approach to life itself. And once you understand that is the way, because nature is all around you and supports that is the way, hopefully you will get a love for self and kind, because this is the critical ingredient that we as African people are missing, and that is a genuine, measurable love for self and kind. And as simple and as trite as that might sound, it is real. It is like the cornerstone in a pyramid, the most important stone of that pyramid. And the same thing goes for a nation of people. The most important cornerstone of that nation of people is their level of love for each other.
Sister Madeline?
Yes, Brother Salim, one thing I wanted to say, I'm having a little bit of a problem hearing him. I don't know if it's something with the mic and how close he is to the mic, because his voice does not come through always very clearly.
Okay.
Okay, but one thing that I was going to say to you, one thing that has happened, which is a very favorable situation for me in terms of the solar energy piece. I met a brother who is African, and he has a solar energy company in Nigeria. And we've had several conversations, because what I'm in the process of doing as we speak, is setting up the systems so that I will sell him the equipment. He will, on his end, can receive it and install it. And in fact, he can go into any portion of Africa to do that work and employ Africans to do the work. Okay, which is very, very important.
Sounds very positive, my sister.
Right, because see what's happening, Brother Salim, and like I said to this one brother who I've been in contact with in Ethiopia, when whites are going over there and the Chinese are over there and all these other races, they're not going to hire Africans to any degree. Yeah. It'll be the same situation as what is happening over here. And going back to that point about what Steve said earlier, I agree with you all. I don't know where he got his data from, but, in fact, I would say that what's been happening to blacks, and I think Brother Nkosi brought this point up, younger black people, I would say below, 40, 30, 20s and on down, they have absolutely been desensitized to our blackness because they don't know the history. They're not getting it in these schools by and large. So they have no understanding of what the racial context of this country and what is going on.
Yes, ma'am.
And so consequently, they're no threat to whites at all.
I think you
and
may
I
be
would
right,
say
my
that that's
sister.
the problem.
Thank you, my sister. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sister.
You're quite welcome.
Good luck with your Nigerian venture. Sounds
I'll
very
be in
promising.
Yeah, I'm working on this very hard. Believe me.
All right, my
Bye-bye.
sister. Bye-bye. All right, Brother John. Hey, John, how you doing?
Yes, thank you, Salim.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, your guest. Now, when I get off the line, please, can you spell your name and tell us where we can purchase your book when I hang up here?
Okay.
Let me say this. Up until the point where you made your comment on reparations, I really wasn't feeling the brother. I really don't know where he was going. He was tiptoeing a lot. But what you said about reparations, stay on your square. Don't let Salim take you off your square. You were right on the reparations movement. You were absolutely right. You nailed that one, okay? Here's the thing. Who is after us? Who is the perpetrator of this genocide you speak of?
It is the I guess I could refer to it as the corporate international banking entities.
Okay, all right. Do they have any sidekicks?
Such as?
Black folk.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They would not be. They would not be as successful as they are if they didn't have some of us, many of us, in cahoots, collaborators.
We not only in cahoots, we the Ace Boone Coon.
Yes, we are.
Okay. We the people we speak of in jail and all this stuff. They are the number one sidekick perpetrators of our own genocide.
I agree.
They're not victims. They're not victims. And if we're gonna rise, we got to figure out what we're gonna do with them. Okay, I'm with you on the. I got a problem with you on the. And it's to me though, but it ain't silent. It's loud as it can be. You mentioned nutrition. You say malnutrition. I go one better. We eat too much. Obesity, diabetes, taking us out.
Yes.
Okay. Listen here, let me tell you. And some of these callers call in.
You with Mayor Bloomberg and banning the 32-ounce drinks in New York, huh?
Well, Well, listen. See, the man saying it ain't about the ban. Just don't drink it. I don't care if it's there or not. Just don't drink it. How's that?
Okay.
Let me say this, Salim. Mm-hmm. You know, some of us call in. We say, you know, he ain't hiring us. The blue collar jobs have left. What we going to do? Man, see, that's why I respect you, brother. That's why I say we ain't Africans. Because Africans don't think like that. I'm sorry. They don't think like that. Mexicans don't think like that.
How do Africans think, John?
Africans are go-getters. They come here, they develop and establish their own industries. They're in the healthcare industry. They're in the aerospace industry. Africans getting PhDs.
But they're here, and they are adopting the very same modalities that Brother Nkosi is urging us to pull away from.
I'm sorry, explain that to me. Break it down for me, please. What modalities are they adopting?
Well, Brother Nkosi says that we need to get away from European ways of looking at the world. You seem to be saying that Africans come here and adopt them fulsomely and become...
Absolutely. You want to know why? Because that's the way you conquer it. You see, is that you become the best in the European system, where you don't depend on a European to do for you. That is a protection. That is a shield against the oppression.
I hear some. Go ahead. I hear a little bit of a divergence here. Go ahead, brother.
No.
Okay.
The brother is he's on it. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, continue, because you're on it.
You have to understand. See, if my lack of employment is a weapon used against me, then I got to be very wise, very clever with how I use my dollar.
Right.
And create my own. Right. And dealing with my own by creating my own little economy. That's why I say you were on track with the reparations movement. There's no reason for me. See, we okay, all these excuses. We talk about education, right? I'm in Detroit in the 1970s when the Chaldeans, the Lebanese, the Koreans, the Armenians all flooded the Detroit markets. Economic markets. They didn't have none of this education they claim we need, and now they have multi-billion-dollar industries in a poor, raggedy, broke city. Mm-hmm. Okay? Why? Because they knew that
because they have cultural capital. Go ahead.
We need to establish a market to make our culture, our existence real here in America. The black man needs something he can call his own. And I recognize this, Salim, that if self-determination for the black man is a national security threat. Tell me, now how do things, if you at the Joint Chief of Staff and black folk don't depend on you for nothing, white folk for anything, think about it. How do we feel about Cuba? We would want to normalize relations with Cuba. How do we feel about Zimbabwe? How do we feel about North Korea? Who knows? You think that this man is going to allow us to exist, to flourish in a $20 trillion economy where we don't have to depend on him? We are up from under his yoke?
So,
no question. He's going to keep us holding on. You know, that's why I say the Jackie Robinson model. It's a farce. No other group adopt the Jackie Robinson model of success. Take the lone Negro and have them break down the so-called color barrier. When you all know everybody else bum rush the show and take it over from the rooter to the tutor.
Yeah, my brother, I think that what you're talking about is a little ahistorical. But I hear you, and I understand your passion, bro. I just think that it's a little ahistorical. Thank you, man.
Okay, how's this for everyone? And I'll end here. Salim, I don't know if you look. There are many books out here.
Yes, sir.
When we came up out of slavery, Salim, we were as intertwined in this economy as we have ever been in our sojourn here. We were the cotton industry. We were the rice industry. We were involved in the Industrial Revolution of America. We were involved in the westward expansion of America. We developed the agricultural industry in California. So to say that we were totally decimated because of slavery, I got books, I got straight treatises and dialogues from African Americans that say it ain't so. That the thing that killed us was Jim Crow and the onslaught of white oppression, direct white oppression, not only with the Ku Klux Klan, but with the American government. That's what shut us down. That's what hit us upside the head. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, John. Okay, let's go to Imani. Telly, hey, brother. How you doing? Brother Telly, are you there? Telly. Hello?
No, this is Russell.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, hold on for a minute, Russell. Let me go back. Oh man, I got Russell. Call back, brother. Sorry. Telly, hey man.
Yes, sir. All praise to God. Appreciate that from the community.
All right, all right.
I fully agree so far with your guest, and I will try to get a copy of his book.
Oh, by the way, hold on for a minute, Telly, brother.
Yes, let me give you folks some information on me. My name is Nkosi Mundari. That's Nkosi. Mundari is Mundari. The book can be purchased at the African World Research Institute, 1719 East 75th Street on Sundays, 10 to 2. And you can purchase the book at the Underground Bookstore on 1727 East 87th Street. Also at Frontline Bookstore, 5206 South Harper, Chicago.
Frontline, yeah, Frontline. Say cool.
Everywhere Bookstore, also 1701 South 1st Avenue in Maywood. And you can also get the book if you would like an autographed copy from me. You can reach me at nnkosim@gmail.com. nnkosim@gmail.com. I am in the Chicago area, and I would make arrangements to get the book to you. Appreciate the interest. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir, Telly.
Yeah. Briefly, I just want to say one thing is just why do we continue to talk about what the white man has done to people? It doesn't make sense. Why should your enemy help you? Why should he do anything in your best interest?
He's not.
I mean, that's that is to me it's very clear. I don't understand why we continue to play on this. But the thing is, we must also understand that there's two systems in this black community. One is the Negro system, and the other is the African and American system. The Negro system has integrated, wished to integrate, will not turn around for anything, and will betray you to the master. I say this, and I'm going to go. Before you get the master, you must get the master's dog. Just that simple.
All right, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Telly. All right. Any response, brother Nkosi?
No.
All right. Let's go to who is this here? Brother Mike. Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Hey, how y'all doing this evening?
Good,
brother.
Good. Listen, I wonder, was it Jim Crow that made black people go to the Supreme Court in 1954 and beg white folks to take black children into their schools? Was that Jim Crow? I don't think so. Is it Jim Crow that has Catholicism being the fastest growing religion on the African continent? I don't think that's Jim Crow. I think that's black folks' foolishness. And we still have a heap of it with us. And we still haven't learned any lessons from our foolishness. It seems to me that we look to go deeper into foolishness. The only thing that I see good coming out of this is that I will probably live out my life because I'm an old black man now. But my grandson...
You ain't that old, brother.
I don't think he gonna live through it. And the biggest fight that I have with trying to battle This mindset is right up under the roof that I live under. I have to fight Santa Claus. I have to fight the Easter Bunny.
Yes, you do.
And I have to fight all of this foolishness that I never even brought in my house.
Good point, man. Good point. Brother Nkosi?
Yes.
And just let me say this real quick. I don't know, Salim, if you're trying to be devil's advocate. I don't think that you are, because I know we got a brother named James that calls in and says pretty much what this brother's saying, and you make mockery of him just about every time he calls in.
I'm sure Brother James will disagree with your description of making mockery.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think so.
All right, brother.
Have a good one.
All right.
Thank you for the comment, brother.
All right.
One thing I want to say real quick in response to the brother's his angst for why we don't embrace and move forward, and it's two things that are hindering us and keeping us back, and one of those is self-hatred, and the other one is enemy fear. See, we have a 500 history of intimate relationship with these people. A 500-year intimate relationship with these people, and out of that 500 years, the resulting effect was a people who were self-hating, who hated being black. And on top of that, it was a people who came out fearful of Europeans. And whether you recognize that in a conscious way or subconscious way, our behaviors belie and indicate and point to the fact that those two points that I made are, in fact, why we don't move. Enemy fear and self-hatred.
Well, what about the fact that we are already so ensnared in this system that a lot of people feel that any kind of drastic move would cause too much disruption in a community that's already been, suffered so much disruption in our history, that what we are trying to do is get a stable community that has an economy that's stable and a family arrangement that is pretty stable, and any major disruption would threaten that stability.
Well, I think that the institutions that are in place that we continue to embrace are designed to produce the results that we see out here. This is not by accident. The institutions that are in place produced what you see out there. And as long as we continue to embrace these institutions, economics chasing money, politics getting the vote out, education, they're still teaching us that Columbus discovered America. And these institutions are the ones that need to be addressed. And that's why I support and say that we should be behind institutions and organizations that are working towards freedom and independence, because the institution like the African World Research Institution, the teaching offers a mind change, a mind adjustment where you understand that you have enemies, because we are not taught these things in their institutions.
Yes, sir. All right, let's go to Brother Maurice. Hey, Brother Maurice, how you doing, man?
Hey, good evening, Brother Salim and Brother Greg over there on the board. And to your guest, my brother, you came up on the west side?
Yes, sir.
Me too. I'm over here, and having grown up over here myself, let me proudly and respectfully greet you with the salutation. What up, homie?
Hey.
All right. Look, man, it's about economics. It's about the earth. And how much of it a group of people have to exist on for themselves. Because the earth nourishes everybody. We don't control any of it. You talked about my brother but pronounce your name once more for me, please.
Nkosi.
Brother Nkosi.
Yes.
You talked about Africa being the richest piece of real estate God ever made. That is so true. Other people are just getting richer and richer by the day. As we squabble, we fight, we just don't get it. And that's mainly because of miseducation, socialization, like Salim talks about. But I want to go here. Let me ask you this. I'm curious, Brother Nkosi. Have you ever, or do you now see the hand of God in all of this stuff?
Well, I do my best to stay focused on how nature functions, and I don't see a specific hand that plays the role of a puppeteer. I see universal laws in effect.
Yes, sir.
Confirmable, verifiable laws that that you can observe in operation. And
yes, sir.
That would be my response, brother.
I got it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got it. Moving right along. The assembly line analogy that you gave earlier in the program, fixing it and preventing it from happening again, getting to the core of the problem, every black person in this country should be able to relate to that, because that's all we've done here for 400 years, work in their industries or their institutions. So we should be able to see that. You don't deal with symptoms. You deal with the cure. And I believe the cure would be economics. And Salim, I got to give you credit, man. You're a very fair guy to allow Larry and Steve to continue to bring this esoteric insanity to the table every week, week in and week out. Here's my thing. We got a 400-year-old problem to fix, y'all. And I think this generation is in a particularly good position to fix it. And everybody, y'all, you're going to be a help or you're going to be a hindrance. And if you're not going to help, just get out of my way. It's about economics. It's about the earth. I don't think Rush Limbaugh would ever let me get through on his program and talk about withdrawing from Bank of America. He wouldn't. But you're a fair guy, Salim, so we're going to do the best we can. I'm going to trust God and do my best. And I do.
But as Brother Nkosi says, I think it's very important for us to be open to critical thinking and to various points of view. And incidentally, man, I was a little disappointed in you, Maurice. You of all people who know me, I heard you say something about I have a negative opinion of our possibilities in the future, or something along those lines.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. You were listening, huh?
Yeah, I heard that. And I said, wow, why would Maurice say that? Man,
you're gonna always be my friend, man.
Well, I was surprised to hear you say it, but
see, here's the thing. The reason why I keep asking about God, there is something that our people held on to for the 400 years they had nothing. But the old people will tell me now they had their faith. And that's all they held on to. And we cannot abandon that now.
Oh, yeah, but the question that he asked me was about 2013.
I know. And you said you can't see us. You don't.
Yeah, I don't see nothing happening before the end of 2013.
It looks bleak. Basically, that's what you said. It looks bleak.
Yeah. That's what
now, the sister he had on the show, on the other hand, that was the sister of faith. She's working on the Joseph Project.
Yes,
now, if you know the story of Joseph in the Bible, he went into Egypt as a Hebrew slave.
Yes.
And ended up running the whole Egyptian economy.
All right.
That was a God that did that. So people who have faith, Salim, they don't walk by sight. You don't see it. And I respect that.
Well, I don't see it. I don't see it before the end of 2013. And that's not so much about.
This is getting good. This is getting good.
Yeah,
Please. You're probably one of them people who didn't think a black man would be elected president, ain't you?
You're absolutely right. I didn't think so.
I rest my case.
You got me on that one, brother. I didn't see that coming.
If God decides to shake this thing up tomorrow, He will do that.
All right, my brother. I hear you. Thank you. Appreciate it, Maurice.
Love you guys.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Thank you, brother.
Brother Nkosi, since he mentioned this, and this is one of the chapters, you spend some time talking about religion and Jesus and all of that. Mm-hmm. Respond to some of what Maurice is saying about God's hand and all of that.
Well, that has a overtone of mysticism and superstition, to believe that there is an entity that plays a role in our individual lives. That is based in belief only. It's only based in belief because you don't see that function in nature, in the universe, in real life. That is a function of belief. So that's as far as I can go with that.
Okay,
it's a function of belief.
Yes, sir.
Just like believing in Santa Claus is a function of belief.
And you think that really is something that is detrimental or at least deleterious to our...
Well, I would go with detrimental.
Okay.
Yeah, I would go with detrimental, and it's for the reasons that I touched on earlier. When you believe in mystical and superstitious things, what that does to you is leave you irrational in your approach to life. It leaves you irresponsible in your approach to life. It leaves you irrational when you believe that something, anything other than you and your own kind are going to handle your problems. That is irrational. It is every life form's responsibility to provide for, preserve, and protect themselves on every level of their existence. That is their responsibility 100%. And to believe in superstitious, mystical thinking that there's someone pushing buttons and pulling strings is absolutely detrimental.
All right, my brother, let's go to Mansong. Hey, my brother, Hotep.
Hey, Hotep, back at y'all.
Hotep, yes, brother.
Hey, Moondari.
Yes,
man,
sir.
Great hearing you, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
And I want to make sure that Sister Ida and Padrika and Eric and Baruti and Famita down in Jacksonville, Florida are tuned in. And I sent out emails to at least 100 folks, alerting them to this dynamic discussion y'all having tonight.
Thank you so much.
And Salim, Asante Sana 1,000 times
yes,
for,
sir.
Having this brother on, And I'm going to be brief because I hope James will call in,
He has called in.
Oh, he has?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I missed him,
Well, no, he's around.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to just say, it's great to have this kind of discussion, and I'm glad, Brother Nkosi, that you did your book and you've been doing what you've been doing all this time. And I want to give props also. Big shout-outs to Dr. Batu Shikari,
yes, sir.
Who, along with Brother Nkosi and others, had that vision of that institution over there on East 75th Street, the African World Research Institute. I think folks listening to this brother tonight should endeavor to go on the website if there's one, and come on over on Sunday and check them out, because they've been doing what they've been doing for a long time, helping to break the monopoly that the oppressor has on black minds.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Asante Sana to you, my brother.
Asante.
Right on.
All right, my brother. Thank you, man, son. Appreciate it. Let's go to James. Hey, James. How you doing, brother?
Without.
All right.
Man, you're having a good show. I really appreciate you having the brother on.
Yes, sir.
I went to his book signing at the Carter G. Woodson Library. I got a book.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. And the book signing, and I'm enjoying the book. It is a awesome book. Now, first, let me say something quickly on this white power structure terrorist act that they pulled in Boston that was orchestrated by them. Now, let's just examine a few things that doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
What so-called terrorists go to a gathering known to have cameras and plant bombs without any disguise whatsoever? Not only do they don't have no disguise, but one of them got his head turned backwards saying, "Look at me." And what so-called terrorists plant bombs on knowing there's cameras in the area where they live and is known? And how did the persons know to send letter with ricin to the president and senator around the same time as the so-called terrorist act? Same thing with the World Trade Center bombing when they sent their letters with anthrax. How did these people know to send those letters? And anybody who got enough nerve and experience to deal with ricin, they got enough sense to know that the president and the senators do not open their mail. So this so-called terrorist act, I don't know if these two boys are phony up with it, or I don't know if they've been tricked into it. But the power structure is behind it. And I think that the plant in Texas was a bombing. Somebody said a missile, either a missile or a bombing.
Yeah, the missile is the word that's out there.
Yeah.
In the
Well, I don't know all the details, but it goes right in line with the atmosphere of chaos that they're creating. And tonight, again, they had 5 people killed in a snow avalanche or something. They keep throwing these crazy stories at us. Now, the brother there, I told him at the book signing, brother, I'm going to say it again. For us as the descendants of slaves in this country, it is over. We're living on borrowed time. Right now, I'd like to try to make Africans aware. I talked to one today that they are next. After they slaughter us, they will be coming for them. And I tell Salim all the time, I like to appeal to good human beings. I don't give a darn what color they is. Pick any one of them colors in that 64 box you want. I appeal to good human beings, not to go on with this power structure plans to slaughter people here of African descent, because that is what they're going to do. Now, that brother there, I just want to tell you, brother, it's too late for us. It's over.
All right, brother.
I mean, it's over for us. All we can do is try to make the Africans aware. But for us, we waited too long. It's over. And the brother and Mike talking about what the Africans are doing here. The Africans are us at this time. What if they was here in 1920 trying to do something? They would have got the same treatment we got. The man ain't thinking about them. So,
right,
know, they would have got the same treatment.
All right, James,
but,
thank you,
brother,
man.
It's over for us, brother. I hate to say it, but there's no way we can stop these murders. They got a plan in full gear, and there's no way to stop it right now. It's just impossible.
Brother James, Brother Nkosi, they want you to spell your name again and the name of the book.
Sure. The title of the book is Genocide by Any Other Name, ... is still genocide. My name is Nkosi Mundari. Nkosi is spelled Nkosi. Nkosi. And Mundari is Mundari. Mundari. Nkosi Mundari.
Got it, y'all? All right. Akila, very quickly. Yes, ma'am.
Assalamu alaikum and Habarigani, my brother.
Habarigani, sister.
Brother, how long has your book been out?
I got the book in December.
Oh, excellent. You know, Salim, I have not been so excited to get a book in a long time.
Well, this should be a good one for you.
This one will be. And I just want to say to Brother James, I am so glad I have a little bit more confidence in the God in me than he does in the God in him. Oh, yeah. And brother, I appreciate you writing the book. Salim, I appreciate you and Mansong getting the brother on the show, because it is very encouraging for us. And I just want to echo one thing that the brother said, and that was about the self-hatred and the egotisms of our folks. You know, I was raised by one of them Harriet Tubman women. And honest to my God, some of us need to just shut up and sit down, because we so busy trying to lead, yet we can't follow nobody. How are we gonna lead anybody anywhere?
Yes,
and we don't know how to follow the inner man inside of us.
That's a very good point, sister.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize how important it is to understand how to follow before you can lead.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you, and I am looking forward to reading your book, and I would love to meet you. Are you going to be over at the place on 75th tomorrow between 10 and 2?
Well, I could make arrangements to do that, but like I said, I am in the Chicago area quite often, and if someone was interested in a signed copy, they can contact me, and I'll give my email address again if I can. It's nnkosim@gmail.com. nnkosim@gmail.com. You contact me, and I'll get a signed copy over to you.
I appreciate that, and I will do just that. In fact, I like to sit at a round table with you, or maybe just over a cup of coffee at some place or something.
Yes, that would be nice.
All right, thank you so much, and have
you.
a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, sister.
The rest of it. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sister. All right, sorry, folks. We just don't have time to fit you in. Brother Nkosi, has been an absolute pleasure. Do you have any quick final words you would like to impart? And by the way, stay tuned, you guys, for Brother Linnell Harris, the life coach and inspirational perspectives. That's coming up right after this. Brother Nkosi?
Just real quick, again, I want to thank you for having me coming in and offering this platform to me. I hope that this work will be considered as an option for, I am utterly confident that it will withstand the weight of critical analysis. We should support organizations, as I said, that stand on freedom and independence. We are, if